The Detroit Pistons are going to have a ton of cap space this upcoming offseason, and Troy Weaver has already said that they're going to be extremely aggressive. Some recent rumors have come out that the Pistons are interested in another young guard in their division. Should they go after him? We'll talk about that in today's episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast.
You are Locked On Pistons, your daily Detroit Pistons podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's the deal? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast. Per usual, I'm your host, Kuka Hill. You can find me over on Twitter at Kuka Hill. I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. And if you haven't already, head to our YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button. It's the best way to support the podcast. We're on the road with 3,000 subscribers, continuing to show Locked On that we're the best and fastest growing fan base at the Locked On Network. So again, if you're one of the 50% of people who are watching this on YouTube and haven't hit the subscribe button already, or if you're watching this on one of the or listening to this, I should say, on one of the podcast platforms, head to the YouTube channel, Locked On Pistons, hit that subscribe button. I'd really appreciate it. So, rumors are circulating now that the Pistons are potentially interested in going after Cleveland guard Collin Sexton. We'll talk about everything within his game, whether he's, what he brings good to the table, what some of his weaknesses. Should the Pistons be interested in paying him compared to some of the other free agents? We'll talk about all of that in today's episode. And we brought on a friend of the podcast. You guys haven't seen him in a long time. You guys have been asking for him to come back on. But Bryce, he is back, host of the False podcast. Last time he was on, he was the host of the Motor City Hoops podcast. But recently, over the past, I believe, month and a half now, he took over him and Omari Sankofa of Detroit Free Press, right? The Detroit Free Press.
Yep. Yes, sir.
Their own podcast now over Pistons Pulse. Make sure you guys go check it out. Bryce, thank you for coming on, man. It's been a while. The listeners have been asking for you to come back on for weeks and weeks and weeks, man.
Well, I appreciate that, and I am happy to be back. I'm excited whenever you reached out, man. I got juiced up, and so I've been looking forward to this all day. So let's get this going, and I'm excited to talk Pistons and some offseason stuff with you.
All right, let's get into it then. So the Pistons are rumored, and for those of you guys watching this on YouTube, you guys are going to see that my Xbox mic's like broken. There's a little piece hanging off. You got
mad at MLB The Show?
Yes, that is actually exactly what happened. that actually is exactly what happened.
I love it.
But it is what it is. Don't pay too much attention to that. Either way. So according to Chris Fedor of Cleveland.com, and I hope I'm saying his last name right, but he's not here to tell me if I'm saying it right. But either way, he says, while multiple sources identified the Detroit Pistons as a potential Sexton suitor, one of the few teams with cap space and a jumbo backcourt partner in Cade Cunningham that can match some of his size limitations. So now this has started a rumor, all kinds of havoc in the Pistons community. Everyone's talking about it. Obviously, Troy Weaver has said that they're going to be aggressive this offseason with their cap space, whether that's in trades as well, too. And in the draft, possibly moving up in the draft, whatever. They're going to be aggressive. And they've already been linked to Miles Bridges. They've been linked to DeAndre Ayton. They've been linked to Jalen Brunson. Collin Sexton's just another name on the list. So first off, I just want to talk about what does he bring to the table, some positives that he brings to the table. Bryce, what do you think of Collin Sexton, some positives that he would bring to the table if he joined the Detroit Pistons?
So I actually spent the offseason looking at his season last year. So last offseason, I spent some time. I was possibly going to do a breakdown and do something with fellow content creator, Matt Issa. So I actually have some notes on Collin Sexton. So I'm just going to say with the positive stuff that I saw from that. Obviously, he didn't play a whole lot of games this past season. So the first thing was pick and roll ball handler. He puts his defender in jail. He snakes. He's really good in the mid-range is what I thought. He can get to his spots. And I thought he was underrated, as a passer and a facilitator, just his mid-range in general. And then I know we're going to talk about his defense whenever we get to the negatives. I thought on-ball defense, he was engaged. I thought he tried to be a pest and disruptive. Now, the problem is he is smaller, so in a switch-heavy scheme like we saw from the Pistons this last season, that wouldn't be great. But I thought he at least was engaged on the ball. But I thought he was really good. I think maybe the best thing, Koo, is as a pick-and-roll ball handler, creator, getting into the mid-range.
All right, so I think the immediate positive that you're going to see with Collin Sexton, you can see this obviously from watching him play, or you could. This is easily that's something you can see if you just go look at the box score. He's a scorer. He's going to come into the game. He's looking to score the ball. He's not looking to, I would say I don't think he's coming into the game looking to try to get other people involved. He's not looking in coming into the game to try, make multiple defensive plays all over the place. He's coming into the game. He's looking to score. He's looking to put the ball in the basket. And for what it's worth, he's not that bad at it. Now, this past season, I'm not going to use against him because he only played 11 games, and he ended up tearing his meniscus, which we'll talk about later on the season. Later on in the podcast. But the previous season, 2020-2021, he played in 60 games. He averaged 24 points a game. He shot 47% from the field, 50% on all two-pointers, and 30% from three-point range. That's pretty good efficiency. He had a true shooting percentage of 57.3. That's a little bit over league average. So with the amount of uses that he had and the amount of shots he was getting up, I think that's pretty damn good. He's a pretty good, efficient player. So I think that's something that you're starting to see a correlation with some of these rumors and what it seems like Troy Weaver's looking for next to Cade. We've talked about that a lot in the podcast, what we think could possibly be the best backcourt mate with Cade. We went different routes. I've said before that I think the best version of a Killian Hayes archetype is, but it seems like that Troy Weaver, at least from what the rumors are saying over the past year, they want a pure scorer next to Cade Cunningham. And I think at the very least, Collin Sexton does that, or he was doing that before he got injured. Now, like I said, we'll talk about his injury and whether that should be a scary a little bit later, but immediately, if he's coming back fully healthy, you're getting a dude who's going to come out here. He's going to get to the basket. He's going to score. He can shoot from deep. He can shoot off the dribble. He can get to the mid-range. He's a 3-level scorer, and he draws a lot of free throws. 2020, yes. 2020, 2021, he took 6.4 free throw attempts a game. So this dude is just a flat-out, any type of way you want him to score, he can go out there and do it.
Yeah, so that's what I was going to say. I'm glad you brought up the free throw attempts because he got to the free throw line a bunch. I went back to in that offseason, watched a bunch of games, and it just stood out to me. Now, I made a note, was like, and this doesn't matter. Maybe it does. Maybe it starts to matter for Pistons fans. I don't know that he gets a lot of those calls once the playoffs come around. Like, I wrote that in my notes, literally, like, I'm not sure he gets all these calls, but he definitely was getting there, and he shoots free throws at a high percentage. Like you say, his efficiency that season was off the charts. And, I mean, I know he's not known as a creator, but he averaged 4.5 assists. It's not like he doesn't create at all. And I do think he's a decent passer. So, yes, offensively, there's a lot of really good stuff. I'm holding back the negatives in terms of the fit and stuff because I know we're going to get to it in a second. But he can score, and like you said, at a very efficient rate.
Yeah, so I think, like I said, that's the biggest positive. I know I don't watch a ton of Collin Sexton. Obviously, I didn't watch a ton of them. I have a story that I'm going to tell you guys about when we get to the second segment, which I think is a pretty fun story. But just from the outside point of view, and honestly, I could probably have the Locked On Cavs guy on in a few weeks or so to talk about Collin Sexton from the outside looking in and the few games I've watched from him and, following Cavs guys and Cavs fans and Cavs riders, etc. This dude's a straight up bucket getter. Like he's just going to get buckets. There's been a lot of question about whether that leads to success, whether that will lead to winning. You have a lot of those questions all the time with guys like that. You had those questions about Zach LaVine. They had them about Devin Booker. I think those guys are probably better than Collin Sexton, but it's kind of just the high-volume shooters, high-volume scorers that don't play a ton of defense. They're always going to have those questions about whether they translate to wins until they actually do it. So I think the overall positive you can get from Collin Sexton is, like we've mentioned multiple times, dude can just flat out get a bucket. He can put the ball in the basket, and for a team like the Pistons who haven't really, Cade now, obviously, but outside of that, you've had some inconsistency and some streaky stuff like that with Sadiq. Same thing with Jeremy, and I don't think Jeremy's going to be on the team next year. So this team needs some scoring. They do need some scoring. And Collin Sexton, definitely, if he comes back healthy, could potentially fill that need. Now, when we come back, we'll talk about some of the concerns and some of the negatives with his game, which I think, I'm not going to lie, I don't know what Bryce's thoughts are, but at least for me, there's quite a few that make me kind of scared to go after him. But we'll talk about that when we come back. But first, I have to tell you guys about one of our sponsors, BetOnline.net. BetOnline.net is your #1 source for all your sports betting stats and sports info. Find all of the latest sports developments, league reviews, and news, including this year's basketball playoffs and the start of the Major League Baseball season. Yes, baseball is finally back. BetOnline is a continued source for all your sports wagering information, from live betting to playoffs, esports, and more. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action today. And if you head over to BetOnline.net, you'll see there's all kinds of things you guys can play with. It's not just basketball, it's baseball, boxing, football, golf, hockey, horse racing, martial arts, soccer, tennis. And if you head over to the NBA basketball side, you'll see that tonight's game, or when I'm recording this, it will be the 20th. Brooklyn versus Boston got the over-under at 226. I'm going to go ahead and take the over on this. I don't think any defense will be played by by Brooklyn, Boston may play some defense, but I think that KD is going to come out here and probably drop a 30, 40-point game after how he struggles. So I would anticipate a high-scoring game here. I'd take the over at -110, 226. That's what I would do. So make sure you guys head over to betonline.net. Have fun over there. BetOnline, where the game starts. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We're free and available on all your podcast platforms. And if you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button. It's the best way to support the podcast. I'd really appreciate it. Again, on the road to 3,000 subscribers. So just head over to Locked On Pistons YouTube channel. Hit that subscribe button. I'd really appreciate it. So Collin Sexton, I think he's kind of a divisive player, Bryce, at least from what I've seen in the basketball community. There's a lot of people who really like him. There's a lot of guys who ride really hard for him, but there's also a lot of people who think that he may not contribute to winning. And he does have a few things that are I would say, what's the word I'm looking for? That are talked about amongst the community outside Cleveland that maybe you kind of mentioned in the first segment, you feel like he kind of put some of that to bed a little bit with some of the passing, but I feel like there's definitely some things that a lot of people think about him and some things he has to try to shed as a player. But the first thing I want to mention real quick is, does the injury worry you? He's obviously coming off a torn meniscus that made him miss almost the entire year. He only played the first 11 games. Coming off an injury. And in this article from Chris Fedor of Cleveland.com, apparently he's looking to try to command. Now, this doesn't mean, just like with Miles Bridges when we talked about this on the episode a few weeks ago, or last week I think it was, a week and a half ago, just because a player is commanding that much doesn't mean he'll actually get that much. He may not actually get it. But it seems like Collin Sexton is trying to command north of $20 million. With him coming off that knee injury, are you willing to give him that kind of money?
So just what I know about knee injuries from my own experience, a meniscus doesn't scare me a lot, Koo, especially since he has set out the whole season. Like, that almost makes me feel a little bit better about it, because what I know about meniscus, and they can be very different, but this much time off probably allowed that to completely heal, and he should be coming back 100%. So my hesitation about giving him 20 plus isn't necessarily about the injury. It's probably about the type of player he is and some of the shortcomings, like I think we're about to discuss and dive into.
So for me, the injury, I haven't torn my knee at all. I know Bryce has, so he has a little bit more of, understanding about how that works, but I haven't. But I grew up a fan of Derrick Rose. Like, that was my favorite player. And I watched knee injuries completely destroy his career. Now, I'm not a doctor or anything. Meniscus tears, tears, ACL tears, all type of knee injuries don't seem as deadly as they were like 10 years ago. Like back Absolutely. In 2011, when D Rose tore it, it was like, oh God, this is done. And now you got players coming back from torn Achilles all the time. You got players coming back from torn ACLs, meniscus. Heck, we just had a dude in the Super Bowl come back from, what was it, a torn Achilles in like 6 months or something. Like, medicine has been extremely advanced, and it's different now. But I would be lying if I said that him coming off an injury like that, missing the entire season, and then still commanding $20+ million, it does scare me a little bit, because I do want to know if he's still the same player. Is he still going to be the same guy? I feel like that's a lot of money to give to a guy if you have any questions about whether he's actually going to be that guy still when he comes back from injury. So that does scare me a little bit. However, I'll let you start first with some of the deficiencies that you were just talking about. What are you worried? Actually, let me try and angle it this way. Are you worried about his fit? We'll get into some of his negative as a player, but just fit wise right now, next to Cade, Sadiq, let's say, we don't know how the roster is going to exactly look next year, but maybe Isaiah Stewart starting center, etc. Do you think the fit makes sense?
No, I don't. And I think it depends on the draft too. I know I listened to you and Hal talk about Paolo Banchero, and I've tweeted this out a couple of times. If the Pistons land Paolo Banchero, I don't want another guard that handles the ball in the starting lineup. And that's not a knock on Killian Hayes. I just think the ball needs to be in Paolo Banchero's hands. And so I don't mean to get into the weeds on draft prospects. I know you're doing that other episodes, but I do think there's some fit issues. I think he's absolutely better on the ball, Koo. Like, I don't think there's any question about it. Again, if I go back to my notes, it was my first negative is off-ball movement. He just isn't very good at it. He's bad off the ball on defense too, if we want to get into that. And then looking at his 3-point numbers real quick here. So percent assisted 3-point. His was at 68. Only 68% of his 3-pointers were assisted. Just for comparison for the listeners, Sadiq Bey was 89%, and Cade Cunningham, who I felt like made a lot of threes off the bounce, was at 71%. So that tells you the type of threes he's making, not necessarily a lot of catch and shoot ones.
Yeah, definitely. I completely agree with you. So I've said on the podcast multiple times, and it's been something that I've been, pretty worried about the Pistons doing with Cade Cunningham. I mean, that's doing a heliocentric offense, is having the ball in his hands nonstop.
Sure.
I really don't want that to be the case for Cade. I don't think that's successful in the playoffs. I don't think you can win a championship that way. I think we're seeing with James Harden, it absolutely tears a guy down over time. So I do not want that to happen. However, like you mentioned, it depends about what happens in the draft, because if they do get another ball handler type of guy, and like Paolo in the draft, you don't want 3 of those dudes in the starting lineup, because then you'll end up getting the type of offense you saw from the Pistons in the beginning of the year, where everyone's.
And you still don't have Killian. We still have Killian's in there somewhere.
Correct. So, and I think like the beginning of the year, offense is like kind of what you can go back to looking at. Like I've said multiple times at the beginning of the year, that one of the things that made this team so hard to watch was because it felt like no one wanted to play for each other. Everyone wanted to play for themselves, wanted to prove they could do something with the ball in their hands. No one was looking to make the right pass. That's the kind of thing you'd get if you have a whole lineup full of guys that want the ball in their hands. So it just wouldn't work. So I agree with you in that point. However, if the Pistons draft someone who's like
Jabari Smith Jr. Jabari Smith Jr. is catch and shoot, not a whole lot. Doesn't need the ball in his hands a whole lot of time. So
let's say Jabari Smith. If they get him and they want another guy who can score, then I think the fit makes a little bit more sense with Cade. However, I still question the fit a little bit even with that, because you have to be able, like, Cade can play on ball and off ball. You want a guy next to him who can score, but you also want a guy who's not just going to be a non-factor when he doesn't have the ball in his hands. Like, you want him to be able to score with the ball in his hands and take some of that off of Cade. But that's a positive that Collin does. But then when Cade's still going to have the ball in his hands a lot more. So he can't just be a non-factor for 70% of the game, and just because he's good for 30% of it when Cade sits like that, I still question the fit as well. So the injury. So far we're looking at the positives and negatives. Positive, he's a scorer, he can put the ball in the bucket. Negatives, you got the injury from me. You got the fit issues that Bryce is bringing up. And then, Bryce, you kind of mentioned his defense already, his off-ball defense. Just talk about his defense from what you saw.
It was bad off the ball, too. and it just really was. I didn't think he was engaged. And here's the other thing. I realize he's 6'1", but he also doesn't help on the boards at all. And I realize, I know people are going to say, well, he's 6'1". What do you expect? Like, some guards can come in and help on the boards. I just don't think he brings a lot. All I thought positively defensively for him when I watched was on the ball. He could get after it. He could be a little bit of a pest and those type of things. But off the ball, I just didn't think he brought much. Again, not to get into the weeds. I hope the Pistons have a more diverse defensive game plan next year. But as much switching as we saw, I can't imagine it's not going to be at least a large part of the game plan. Like, that puts him in a really tough spot if you're switching all those screens. And that's what Isaiah Stewart does best, right? That's his best ball screen coverage. So I don't know. There's a lot of little quirks with it I don't love.
So I'm going to go ahead and tell Bryce this. I eventually want to get Bryce back on the podcast, like in a month or so, whenever he can get back on here and talk about the defensive scheme thing. Because I actually answered your question on the last podcast.
Okay, I need to listen. I haven't listened to that one yet, so I need to go listen.
Yeah, yours was the one I literally opened up with. I spent like almost the entire first segment because I thought it was a great question about the diverse offensive scheme and defensive scheme, whether that's going to change up next year. So I do want to talk about that at some point this summer. However, I'm going to skip his defense. I think his defense is just bad. Everyone knows it's not that good. It's just not. It's not good. However, I want to skip to a story real quick that I have about Collin Sexton. I think I've told it before on the podcast before. I don't know. I may not have. But so the 1920 season, I was credentialed, and that was the year I was at all the Pistons games at home. I got to be in the locker room. I got to be in the post-game interviews, all that kind of stuff, which, by the way, Bryce got to do for who did they play against that game?
The Clippers, 3-1-3 day. 3-1-3 day.
There you go. So Bryce got to go there, and he was credentialed for that game. He got to experience it. I told him it was going to be absolutely fun. Food is amazing.
Yeah, you were not lying. You everything you built it up to be, it was that and more.
Yeah, so it's a great experience. So, however, just one specific game from that year, Collin Sexton, we went against the Cavs, or the Pistons. Let me not say we. I don't know why I keep saying that. Pistons went against Cavs, and it was funny as hell because going into the game, I hadn't watched like a ton of Collin Sexton. I heard a lot of people talk about like what he does. I followed people on Twitter and followed like Cavs people, but I didn't like watch a ton of Collin Sexton. And I heard all about how he doesn't pass. Kevin Love hates him. All these players. Like, I think that was the year that it was saying that players literally were like pissed that he was even on the team because he didn't know how to play or something. He didn't know how to be a point guard or something. I think that's what was going on at that time. So I'm going into this game. I'm like, okay, is it really this bad? Let me go into this game and watch it. And I kid you not, in this game, I watched this man. I watched this man pass up or look off Kevin Love like 3 times wide open, like back to back to back wide open. I watched Kevin Love roll his eyes, walk back on defense. And the one time Collin Sexton, like, to start a play up, he had to give the ball to Kevin Love like at the high post or something to like start the play up. As soon as he gave it to Kevin Love just whipped the ball right back out and then went back up to the wing and stood there. It literally was like an insane experience. I was thinking, because I'm so close, I get to hear like the talking and everything. I get to hear, I see the rolling of the eyes and stuff. Like, it was very clear, like watching the game up close. Dudes did not like playing with him, and he for real did not pass at all. Now, since then, people have said that he's gotten better with that. But I thought that was funny, so I think that's a funny story to say, because it was literally right there, full display, no hiding it at all. Like, Kevin Love was openly furious and did not like playing with dude. So,
that's what's great about that, right? You get to see all that body language stuff that we try to talk about, but like you're saying, from your angle where you were at that for that game, you got to see the eye roll and if there was a comment made. And I don't know, as you talk about that, and you brought it up a couple of times, it just makes me wonder. I know he's a restricted free agent, like we should say that, but it just doesn't seem like Cleveland would have any interest in bringing him back. Like, it just doesn't seem like it would make sense with the success they've had, what they're building, and then these type of stories that you're talking about. Can I throw out a contract at you? Because I've thought about this a little bit since you brought up the $20+ million.
Actually, we're going to go ahead and get into contract immediately after this. So I'll let you literally start the next segment, literally bringing up that contract. Make sure you just keep it on you. I know you got your notes. Just don't crumple it up and throw it away. Just keep it on you. When we come back, we'll let Bryce tell you guys what contract he's about to throw out there and whether the Pistons should pay him that contract. But first, I have to tell you guys about one of our sponsors, your guys' favorite sponsor, Built Bar. This is the time of year that I've pretty much given up on all my New Year's resolutions. But not this year. I'm sticking to my resolutions to eat right, and it's thanks to Built Bar. It almost feels like it's not even really a resolution because I actually enjoy eating them. Have you tried the Puffs bar? If you haven't, you're missing out on one of Built Bar's best tasting protein bars. Puffs are the first ever protein-infused marshmallow. They're fluffy, they're marshmallowy, they're not just a protein bar, they're an absolute treat. And get this, they're covered in 100% real chocolate. And what makes it even better is that it's not just the Puff bars. All Built Bars are covered in 100% real chocolate. They're low calorie and high protein. Replace your candy bars with these. They taste better and they're simply better for you. A typical candy bar can be anywhere from 200 to 300 calories, 30 grams of sugar, and dozens of net carbs. Go to Built.com and scroll down to the macro chart. You'll be absolutely blown away. High protein, no calories. High fiber, low carbs. And while they make it good for you, they make it absolutely delicious as well. You got mint brownie, coconut almond, a new flavor this month, white chocolate cookies and cream. You got peanut butter, which is my favorite. You got cherry barcia, raspberry, blueberry, strawberry, literally all kinds of flavors. And if you're constantly going to Built.com, you're going to be seeing limited time flavors that feel like they come out every other week. At Built Bar, they're all about the taste. They make it taste delicious first, then figure out how to make it healthy. I don't know how, but they pull it off every single time. So go to Built.com, use promo code LOCKED15 and get 15% off your order. Again, use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. Built Bar, the best tasting protein bar ever. So I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, you guys get all the jazz. Go to the YouTube channel, Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button. I'd really appreciate it. Best way to support the podcast, yada, yada, yada. You guys know what I'm saying. If you're watching this and you haven't hit the subscribe button, I really don't know what you're doing. Just go over there, hit the subscribe button. Best way to support the podcast. I'd really appreciate it. But Bryce, go ahead. You had a contract that you wanted to throw out for everybody.
So I just wanted to ask, like, what you thought about this. And I'm not even saying that, like, if this is what he would take, there's still all the fit concerns. But what if you offered him a 3-year contract? What if year 1, it was 15, year 2 was 15, and then year 3, it took a jump to 20+ million, but that was like a team option or something like that. So I don't know. Maybe that's not how contracts actually work in the NBA. I feel like usually it's pretty much the same throughout the entire contract. But I'm like, that gives you 2 years at a reasonable price. The 3rd year, then it jumps. By that time, you would know whether he is what you want him to be. That's a club option. Plus, after 3 years, my understanding of all of this is now you would have his bird right. So what about something that was structured in a way kind of like that?
So first, I want to say I don't think it would be smart for Collin to do something like that.
Sure.
However, and to speak to your whether NBA contract works like that, usually what I see, they slowly escalate, like they go from like 15, 16, 17, or they slowly de-escalate.
Not such a drastic jump. So I don't even know if what I just outlined is like within the negotiations to happen. Like I don't know enough about that stuff.
So I would say that it would be interesting. I would consider it, and it actually was going to be what I brought up to you, is that basically, it sounds like you're basically getting him on kind of like a bargain deal. You're like, if he didn't get hurt, he probably is getting 20 plus easy if he didn't get hurt from somewhere. Some team is giving him that. So if you can get him for less than $20 million in the contract you're mentioning here, I would actually consider it. I think it would be a bargain deal. I actually think he would be tradable too. If you didn't think the fit worked, I thought he'd be tradable if you can get him under 20 million. So what about that? I'll throw that back to you. If you can get him underneath $20 million, would you do it? Because I think that I would actually, I think I probably would.
Yeah, so that's another thing that I've thought about too. Like, can the Pistons really pass, whether it's, and I know we're going to talk about these other guys, whether it's Brunson or Sexton, if these guys will come to Detroit in free agency on reasonable contracts for their playing, like, do you really want to pass on that? And if the fit doesn't work, like you can make it work to build back up their trade value and then get something in return. Like, I don't think that's bad. Like, it's a larger scale version of what they did with Trey Lyles, right? Like, none of us wanted Trey Lyles in Detroit, but he played really well in the second unit. And now they got Marvin Bagley in return. Now you would want a higher version of that, but I don't know that that's a bad way to look at it. You know, like you were the first one. I always like to bring it up, asset management and compiling this treasure chest. Why not continue to compile it?
Well, I think the problem, or at least the concern, and we'll segue this into talking about the other guys that you brought up, like Brunson and Bridges and Aiden, possibly. I don't think Aiden, by the way, guys, is like a target. I would be willing to bet my entire bank account he does not leave Phoenix. Like, I really don't believe that's happening. But I think the problem with that is that, so like Trey Lyles, he doesn't handicap your cap structure. He doesn't take up a large part of that. So you did take somewhat you paid him a little bit, but it wasn't like something that was going to restrict your cap space.
Fair.
This upcoming offseason, it sounds like the Pistons are going to get something. They're going big fish fishing, basically. Like they're going after the big fish, whether that's Brunson, Bridges, Sexton, whether they get involved in a trade or something. Like Troy Weaver has come out and said, we are going to be aggressive this offseason. I think that's simply because, and we talked about it like way earlier in the year together, Cade Cunningham, they got Cade. The timeline sped up. They want to start winning games. So they're going to do something this offseason. I have no doubt about it. So the question now comes is, do you want to pay, if this is going to be your big splash, this is going to be what you use your cap space on, do you want to use on Collin Sexton? Do you want to use on Jalen Brunson? Do you want to use on Miles Bridges? So this is what my question to you would be is, so let's say you can get Miles Bridges for, I think like the rumor out there, he wants $34 million a year. I don't think he'll get that. But let's say you can get him at $31 million. And then you can get Brunson around $30 million. Or you could get Collin Sexton around $18 to $22 million. Like, does that drop off in price like sway you from like, you know what, we'll avoid paying this guy $30 million so we'll bet on this guy for cheaper. And if it doesn't work out, maybe we could trade him. Like, is that like a bargain that you'd be willing to do? Or would you rather just, you know what, we're going to go get, this is where we're spending our money. This is like our cap right here. I'm going to get the guy, whether it's 10, 12, 15 more million dollars expensive, I'm getting my guy. Me, I would go for my guy. If they want Brunson like that, which by the way, I'm not a huge fan of paying Brunson $30 million. If he commands that like $27, $30 million, I'm not a big fan of that. And Miles Bridges too, like $31 million. But if they feel like that's our guy, that's who we want, and that's who we're going to, because you mentioned it's Detroit. You're going to have to overspend on these free agents. Like the free agent that you actually end up getting, you better make sure that's the right one, because that's the one you're going to have to overspend on. You better make sure that's the right choice. So would you rather pay extra money for a Brunson or Bridges, or would you take maybe a discount, which, but again, we don't even know if Sexton would take a discount or his market's going to allow him to get that 20 plus per million. But would you take that discounted Sexton over like Brunson and Bridges at their cap dollar?
I think I agree with you. I think I don't know that I would do it if I was Troy Weaver, but if Troy Weaver is just like confident, hey, Jalen Brunson is the guy to play next to Cade Cunningham, and that's going to be the number 2 option, and we can roll with that. And at $30 million, he's going to be worth it as the salary cap rises. I'm okay with it. I don't know that I believe it. I don't want the middle ground, I guess, is to answer your question. Yeah, let's either go big, like let's go big. And I agree with you. I don't think DeAndre Ayton's leaving Phoenix. Let's go big, or I don't want to say run it back, because that, like, obviously the Pistons weren't very good. Usually run it back is for like championship teams, but let's make it a few little small signings. Like Dante DiVincenzo is a guy I brought up on Twitter today. He's a restricted free agent with Sacramento. Like, sign him and see if you can hit on that. Malik Monk is another guy. Those guys are going to command a lot less even than what we're talking about with Sexton. And let's see, like, that opens up opportunities for, what do we really have in Killian Hayes? How good is Sadiq Bey going to be? Can Marvin Bagley really be what we saw for a month and a half last season? I don't hate that plan at all, Koo. I'm with you. The clock's ticking with Cade Cunningham, and I don't want another year of 20 wins. But I also, if you miss on that big fish, if you swing on Brunson and miss, Koo, man, that's tough.
Yeah, that's the big concern for me. That's because I just want to say this again and make it known. When you play in Detroit, or you're the GM of the Detroit Pistons, when you get your free agent, you go after a guy, you are going to have to spend more than other teams to get him to come to your team. Like, that's just the case. That is what it is. That's been the history of the Pistons. When you go after big teams or big players, it is what it is. People aren't coming to Detroit because they prefer Detroit over LA. It is what it is. We love Detroit. I'm from Detroit. Like, we love it here, but like, it's just not happening. Players aren't choosing Detroit over LA. You're gonna have to pay him more money. So the thing is, like I mentioned, is that if you're going to overspend, which is fine, you have to make sure that overspend is the right one. And I really question whether Collin Sexton is that right one. I think there's way too many concerns about fit. There's way too many concerns about his play style fitting with the other players already on the team, specifically Cade Cunningham, obviously. And it really does depend coming out the draft as well. Like, if they do get Paolo or they get another ball handling guy, then it definitely rules it out. But even if they get like Jabari Smith, I still question, because Collin can't play off ball really. So I just really hope that Troy Weaver is smart with what he does with the money this offseason, because from all what we've heard, it sounds like they're going to spend it. It's going to be spent. They're going to do something. And I agree with you as well. Like, if you're going to do it, go get your dude and swing big. Don't like try we missed on our guy. Now we have to go spend more on this guy. Like, don't do that. Do not do that. I'd rather them just go out and get like small signings. Replace, like, if they want to just like cycle through, like, oh, we've seen from Hami, we don't think he's it. We've seen from Frank, we don't think he's it. Let's cycle in the same type of dudes and see if these ones play better. Like, cycle in different dudes. I'd rather that happen than them miss some Bridges and Brunson and then be like, oh, well, we have to do something. Let's go pay Collin Sexton $23, $24, $25 million. I would hate that. So along with the fit concerns, his deficiencies as a player, his injury, I'm also worried about the contract. I think that should rule Collin Sexton out for this offseason. I think it's fun to think about. I think that gives you guys, I think it gives everyone a clear vision of what Troy Weaver is imagining next decade. But I think for me, I'm out.
So, and here's the other thing that I've learned from my 18 months really being around the NBA. The Pistons have a bunch of cap space, right? And everybody knows it. So they're probably going to be linked to every single free agent, because that's what that free agent's agent needs to do to drive up his price, right? Like, I hate to say that, and I hate that the Pistons may be that team, but they have $30 million to spend, possibly. And so, yeah, they're going to be – you can't say, oh, the Lakers are interested in Collin Sexton, because the Lakers don't have any money. And so we could see the Pistons just used as leverage as well. I hope not, but there's a possibility. We're hearing a lot of these names because agents need some leverage to get their guy some more money.
So before we wrap up the podcast, I do just want to ask you this. I think that 100% is a fair point, and I think that very well could be the case. However, are you also drawing away like a conclusion, like I am, that through all the rumors that it's becoming clear what they want next to Cade? Like, all the rumors continue to be like scoring guard.
Yeah.
Are you drawing the same thing?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it makes sense that that's what they're looking for. I'm trying to think of an example of somebody who isn't a scoring guard that they could be linked to. I can't think of one off the top of my head, I guess. So, but yeah, like if they were linked to guys like that, then it'd be like, oh, maybe they want Cade to play off ball a little bit more. But it sure seems like Jalen Brunson is a perfect example, right? He literally has been playing with Luka Doncic, who everybody loves to compare Cade to, and I've warmed up to the comparison a little bit with you. Don't want it to be so heliocentric, but like a guy that's used to playing like somebody like Luka Doncic, Cade Cunningham, I think it makes sense. I think you can draw some parallels there.
All right, so we'll go ahead and wrap up the podcast there. Make sure you guys go let us know. You can let me know on Twitter at Kuka Hill. You can let Bryce know over at Twitter at Motor City Hoops. Do you think the Pistons should go after Collin Sexton? Do you think he's a good fit? Do you guys disagree with some of the things we said? Do you agree with some of the things we said? You guys, again, go on Twitter, let us know over there, or in the comment section down below on the YouTube channel, or in the reviews down below if you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts. Thank you, Bryce, for coming on, man. We'll have to get you back on eventually.
Oh, no doubt.
We'll work some things out, and when Bryce comes back on eventually, we're going to talk about the defensive schemes and offensive schemes thing.
Yes.
Because I really want to talk about that. But thank you, Bryce, for coming on, man. I really appreciate it. It's been a while. Make sure you guys go check out him and Omari's podcast, Pistons Pulse. Make sure you guys go check it. I believe they do it once a week every Tuesday?
Tuesday morning.
Yep. Every Tuesday, once a week. Make sure you guys go check that out. I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We're free and available on all your podcast platforms. Make sure you guys go make Locked On NBA your second listen of every single day. From the first jump off the play-in tournament to the last position of the finals, Locked On experts take you deep inside the playoffs with insight and analysis affecting all 30 teams. And until the next one, I'll see you guys later. Bryce, real quick, say out loud who you got win the championship.
Booker just got hurt. Can I say the Milwaukee Bucks on a Pistons podcast?
Yeah, go ahead, because I'm going with Milwaukee and Golden State in the finals. Okay. All right, guys. We'll see you later. Thank you for listening. I'll see you on the next one. Peace out, everybody.